Human behavior. In today's session, we are going to learn about, first of all, cognitive learning. So, what is cognitive learning? We are going to find out in next few minutes. This is the part of that major title, which is of learning human behaviors. So today we are having a second part of that learning human behaviors, and what is the cognitive learning is the topic which we're discussing right now. So we learn different ways as we have been discussing so far. There are different ways children learn, adults learn, and there is obviously a difference between the way a child is going to learn and an adult is going to learn. The learning which takes place in the mind of a child is majorly a copy paste based learning, because a child is not able to utilize the brain or use the brain. So the major thing child would be doing is following. The child is going to look at things. The child is mostly going to take a look at the parents, the way parents are doing things, and the child is going to learn from the parents' behavior and going to follow the same behavior. So while cognitive learning is actually a little different from that. Cognitive learning can be called mature level of learning, or like we discussed in the beginning, child learning or adult learning. This is adult learning in which an adult who is now in census, he has or she has attained certain level of knowledge. He or she can make use of common sense. He has learned the art of living in this world. He or she has done different observations, and from the multiple experiences, the adult is now sufficiently informed on things. So the learning process of an adult is always going to be different from the learning process of a child. As we discussed, that child is merely doing copy pasting, while adult is using the brain. So this is the beauty of learning, in fact, and this is actual learning. When you utilize your brain, when you utilize your senses, when you analyze the learning things which are being taught, you do not take any information blindly. You, based on your experiences, would like to evaluate the thing. You, based on your past experiences, you would like to do analysis by yourself, and you are going to decide that whatever is being taught is making sense to you or not. Based on that, you will be cutting away the information if any information will not be making sense to you. And if there is going to be any information making sense to you, then obviously you would like to learn it further. So another word which you can actually give to cognitive learning is logical learning or intellectual learning. Here, the intellect is already involved. The learning is taking place with already the intellect which has been learned. So the intellect does the analysis. So the new learning is going to be on the foundational pillars or of existing learned knowledge. So the new stories are always going to be built on this building of knowledge based on the analysis that whether if the new material or new stories or which are going to be built over that structure of knowledge is making sense or not. If the new story, if the new level of knowledge, or if the new level of story in the building is not making sense, then as an adult, you are going to decline it. This is cognitive learning. In cognitive learning, you do not blindly accept the things. You observe the things, and based on on observations, you either accept the things or you deny the things. For example, if at 11 a.m. in the morning, you are being told that it's really, really dark outside and the night is now totally in grip. So, as an adult, you are going to deny this information. Why? Because you are going to argue the information which are being communicated to you. You will not accept the information just because of the way the information is being communicated to you. You will do your own analysis. You will tell that it's 11 a.m. in the morning, and you're telling that it's actually night, and night has taken grip. So you will obviously deny this information. If somebody is going to push you to accept it as an information, so you obviously are going to just would not like to sit in that environment where you're being told to learn the wrong things. So this is cognitive learning. You include your senses, you include your rationale. This is also, you people are also doing cognitive learning to an extent, because when you as a student started your life in the schools, or we as a students when we started our life in the schools, so in the early ages we were just accepting the knowledge which was being taught to us. We were not bothered that whether if the things which are being told are correct or incorrect. We as new learners were totally learning the way things were being taught. So but as you grew up, we started having the foundations of knowledge, we started having the pillars of knowledge already built. So now we have this rationale of decision making in our mind based on which we are going to evaluate the incoming information. So if any information is not going to be making sense, then obviously we are going to deny that. So cognitive learning is the process of logical learning. Cognitive learning is the process of intellectual learning, where you will use all your brain senses, you will use your existing knowledge, you will use your brain potential to evaluate the things which are being discussed, and then based on that analysis, you will either take it as a correct information or you will deny it as an incorrect information. So here the bookish definition says the cognitive learning is a style of learning that focuses on more effective use of brain. Cognition is the mental process of gaining knowledge and understanding through senses, experiences, and thought. Unlike a child who was not using any senses, I mean, obviously the child is going to use the senses at minimal level. It won't, not using any senses won't be a right statement. But majorly, since the child is, that is the first knowledge which the child is having. So the child is only going to accept the knowledge which is being communicated. So that's the thing. It also says that cognitive learning is an immersive and active process that engages your senses in a constructive and long lasting way. So here you are using your senses to evaluate the new information which is being shared. So you will not blindly accept any fact. If a mathematical problem is being solved or somebody is saying 3 into 3 is equal to 16, then you are going to deny the fact. No matter somebody has solved the complete problem, but you will stick to that portion where the person has done 3 into 3 is equal to 16. You are not in, you will not at all accept the solution of that problem until somebody is not addressing that part. 3 into 3 is equal to 16. How is that taking place? So it's the logical learning. It's the logical way you will be taking decisions, because here the only thing which works is logic. It also says that cognitive learning is an immersive and active process that engages your senses in a constructive and long lasting way. It teaches you to maximize your brain's potential and make it easier to connect new information with existing ideas, deepening the memory and retention capacity. So, as we have discussed in the beginning, that the existing knowledge is going to be banked upon for acceptance of new knowledge. The existing knowledge is going to accept the newcomer or will not let the newcomer to get inside. The existing knowledge, which is already a learned and intelligent knowledge, will observe the things first. In hypothesis, when people are doing PhD, they do their final assignments, they do their final research projects, and that in that research project, people will do their research work. And in that research work, what they do is they come up with hypothesis testing. And in the hypothesis testing, what they do is they come up with null hypothesis and an affirmative hypothesis. So null is like negative hypothesis, and positive is the true hypothesis. For example, if somebody says that the use of mangoes enhances the energy in an athlete, for example, you call it a hypothesis H1. And against it, there is another hypothesis which is use of mango does not create any difference in the physical condition of an athlete, which is H naught. So now you have two hypotheses in front of you. H naught is trying to prove that the use of mangoes is not going to create or it's not going to bring in any health difference in the physical conditions of an athlete, while the other hypothesis is trying to prove, which is H1, that the use of mangoes is going to bring in the difference in health condition of the physical of that athlete. So testing will be done on these two hypotheses. There will be there is going to be research involved. Mangoes are going to be experimented. The use of mangoes will be experimented. What are the various calciums? What are the various vitamins available in the mangoes, which will be evaluated? How the different what is the role of those different vitamins inside human body will be evaluated. So whether if those different vitamins are playing any part in creation of energies in the human body will be evaluated. So it will be evaluated that all those various vitamins which are there in the mangoes are energy boosting vitamins or not will be evaluated. So then it will be tested, again experimented on physical athletes as well, with the physical one athlete with totally bad condition, and he will not be presented with mangoes, but another condition with the bad another athlete with the bad physical condition will be presented with mangoes, and he will be having some mangoes to eat. And now there's going to be an experiment and observation done between these two, that whether if the use of mango was really creating any difference or not. So if there is going to be a change in the behavioral patterns of the athlete who has used mangoes, there is an positive change in the way the athletes now going to look at things. In the there's a positive change in the courage level. There is the positive change in the energy level. There is a positive change in the motivation level. So all these various things play part when you have good food. So athletes would eventually prove that the mangoes are definitely playing part in the energy levels. So this way, once this hypothesis will be proved that H1, which is stating that the use of mangoes does create energies in the human beings and in the life of athletes, will be taken as a proven study. And that H naught hypothesis, which was saying that use of mangoes does not create any difference in the life of athlete, will be denied, will be neglected. So this way, this is a simple example, very simple, very basic and simple example of the way hypotheses are designed, and then the way those hypotheses are actually tested. there can be multiple examples. We can discuss, in the same regard, that how these different hypotheses are actually tested. So cognitive learning in collectively is the process of logical learning. So you will not accept any information which is not making any sense. This is going to be only intelligent learning. And like in the science of investigations, you see that but whenever you're going out there to catch a crime, to investigate a crime, so you will only based on the evidences will proceed further, and you will, based on the evidences available at the crime scene, you will make the logical connections between one part and the second part, and from those various evidences available in on that location where the crime has taken place, you are going to just create a create a perception that that how probably things would have taken place. So all that is basically a process of logical learning, cognitive learning. This is the conditioning, cognitive conditioning of various facts which were there at the crime scene. So this way, intelligent learning will let you think out of the box, and you will have some new points based on the existing points. Your brain faculties will not be dumb. You will not be just based, I mean, dependent on the existing knowledge only. You will, based on the existing knowledge, will try to create new knowledge. When you will find any scene, for example, you go to the crime scene and you get to see the blood drops, and the blood drops, you get to see that the blood drops were starting from a location. Those blood drops were actually marching towards another door, and from that door the blood drops were like moving further. So from that, though you have not seen the actual crime which was actually conducted, but logically you can actually make an assessment that there was somebody who was injured, and because of that injury there was a dripping of blood, and that from that location from where you saw the first drop of blood, and then in the direction where that person was, I mean, that blood was taking you, you're going to follow that direction, and that way, from that you will assess that which was exactly the starting point, whether if the, for example, from bed to the door, whether if bed was the starting point of the dripping, or the door was the point from where the blood started dripping. So you will make logical connections. So this way the cognitive learning process takes place. It is the out of box thinking which brain actually takes any person into, and you will try to assess and evaluate things. This is exactly how the judges also solve the problems. They, based on the various facts, logical facts, they will evaluate and will conclude that what could be the possible reason, and and who could be the possible culprit committing the crime. Likewise, in your normal life, uh, this is in the process of cognitive learning, you will only um, based on the various you know processes which run in the inside the mind of a person who is taking any new information. You will evaluate that information in your mind, that whether if this can be making sense or not. For example, if you're studying chemistry and somebody somehow all of a sudden started telling you about the way lions tribe get to protect themselves from external threats. So when you are learning chemistry only and you are doing the research on various chemicals, and suddenly the person who is there and abruptly starts telling you about the way lions protect their tribe from the external threats, so you are not going to accept that discussion started by that man. You are going to interrupt and will ask that man to stop discussing about that lion's tribe defending thing, and would rather like to focus on that chemistry stuff which you were discussing at that time. So this is the process of cognitive learning, in which you do not learn blindly. You do not learn whatever is being told to you just, I mean, the way you're being told. You are going to involve the process of logical thinking to learn the new information. As you yourself can see in the on this slide, that it's in the second part of it, it's actually beautifully written that Cognitive learning is an immersive and active process that engages your senses in a constructive and long lasting way. It teaches you to maximize your brain's potential and makes it easier to connect new information with existing ideas, deepening the memory and retention capacity. So, to sum it up, the cognitive learning is the process of logical learning. So, and it's rationale based learning. There is always and there should always be a rationale for the new knowledge. If any new knowledge is not making sense, is any new knowledge is not based on any rationale, then that knowledge will not be accepted. So now let's move to the second part of this today's session, which is observational learning. As from the name itself, we can make an assessment that based on the cognitive knowledge, obviously, which you have, that it's the process of observational learning. You learn different manners in different ways. In cognitive learning, there were faculties involved inside the brain, and new information was being screened through the existing knowledge, and then the knowledge was again screened through the logical senses, and after having these two screenings done, the new information was accepted or being denied. Here in observational learning, what you do is that there's new learning taking place based on the observation. So in observational learning, you will witness the things taking place, you will see the things taking place, and based on that, you can either start imitating the way things were being done by another person, and exactly by imitating that person, you can either do the things, or you can learn the new things by taking messages from that thing which you have just seen, or which you would have seen at that time for new learning. So principally, the observational learning is the process in which you get to learn new things. For example, if you talk about chessboard, and for example, there are two chess world champions playing on the board, then you would evaluate that whenever there was an attack created by one player on the opponent's side to checkmate the king, then how exactly the opponent side created the shield or created the defense against that attack. So this way, you are learning new ways of creating the defense against a type of attack. So this way, when you will be playing chess on the chessboard, you will know if your opponent will create a same sort of attack on you. You know how to defend that attack, and because of this preemptive thinking, the moment that opponent of yours is going to start creating that attack, you will know at the first place that you know what is coming. So this is observational learning, that you look at guys, the way other persons are performing, and based on that, you will learn new ways of things. You will learn new ways of doing things. Observational learning is also something which a child does. A child basically learns what does he do? He actually or she learns things, and she or he learns mainly through observations. He or he observes things, and based on the observation, there is new learning taking place. We also learn from movies. Many times there are a lot of things which in our normal course of life we would not be understanding, but when we look at movies and when the things are logically presented, then you're going to accept that knowledge which is being given to you through that movie, and you will learn from the sequence of events that okay, if this takes place, then this may take place, and if that takes place, then further exactly how the things can take place in future. So in observational learning, you will learn the things through observation. In cricket also, you must have noticed. Let me quote this example of I remember once upon a time there was a cricketer not a long time ago. Sehwag, when he started his batting career, and he used to copy Sachin Tendulkar a lot. We are just sharing an example of our neighboring country, but this is the best example for observation learning. That's why I'm actually sharing it here. That Sehwag, when he started his batting, he used to copy Sachin Tendulkar so much that in the beginning days, it used to be very difficult to assess that whether if on the strike it's Sachin Tendulkar playing or is it Sehwag playing. So he, because he was so fond of Sachin's batting, that he started copying his batting a lot, and eventually by copying his style, he learned the way batting was done by Sachin, and also from that he gotten his own style, and he became what he became. So same way in our country, there are a lot of bowlers who follow the patterns which other bowlers do. We can have another best example we have from Pakistan cricket is of Abdul Qadir and Mushtaq Ahmed. Abdul Qadir was a leg spinner, during 80s, early, 80s time, 80s time of Pakistan cricket era. And then subsequently came Mushtaq Ahmed, who was the student of Abdul Qadir. So if you take a look at both of the styles of these two bowling leg spinners, you would know that you see Mushtaq Ahmed was an exact copy of Abdul Qadir. Though subsequently Mushtaq Ahmed accelerated the style, but he did not change in the style. The same style was followed, but with little more pace involved in it. In the way Abdul Qadir used to take a little longer to start his rhythm and then reaching to the stumps and then delivering the ball, while Mushtaq Ahmed is going to take was it started taking a little lesser duration to deliver the ball. So this is another example of observational learning. So in observational learning, you will look at another person and you will either follow exact pattern. You will either do the uh, complete following of that style which you see, or you will bring in new changes, relevant changes, and based on which there is going to be the new knowledge coming up, or you will just do the exact 100% copy of the person to whom you were observing. So if you just take a look at this slide right now, it say that observational learning is learning that occurs through observing the behaviors of others. It further says that observational learning method of learning that consists of observing and modeling another individual's behavior. When we say modeling another individual's behavior, we just the perfect example which we have just discussed is of Abdul Qadir and Mushtaq Ahmed. That Mushtaq Ahmed modeled the behavior of Abdul Qadir completely. And okay, it further says that another method of learning that consists of observing and modeling another individual's behavior, attitudes, or emotional expressions. Although it is commonly believed that the observer will copy the model, American psychologist Albert Bandura stressed that individuals may simply learn from the behavior rather than imitate it. If we again continue with the examples of cricket, then you can we can actually share the examples of a lot of batsmen who would notice that if they were being if any bowler was very attacking and he was so fond of throwing bounces on any batsman. So initially, batsmen were not having any defense defined or created against these bounces which bowler used to come up. But subsequently, batsmen started taking courage, and they started understanding that if they will continue defending or will continue getting worried against these bounces, then the bowler will obviously lead, and the bowlers will not let them play. So they eventually came up with a defense mechanism. And so once they started working on the counter strategy, then they come up with different ways those bounces were actually dealt with. There were certain batsmen who started playing those bounces by going in the back foot and lifting their bats and then pushing the ball down. That was a defensive way of dealing with those bounces, and there was then attacking way of dealing with those bounces by going with the front foot and hooking the ball towards the fine leg area or any other area. So this is another example of observation learning, that you are a batsman, you are being tricked by the bowler by these short pitch bowlings and by these bounces, and you would, instead of getting worried, you would take a look at various ways the ball batsmen who are dealing with it perfectly well. You're going to take a look at the videos of them, and then you will follow the same pattern to take a defense or create a defense against the attack which is being faced by you. You also have the examples of boxers. There are a lot of boxers, before their boxing matches they would take a look at the way the other boxers were fighting. So before the start of their fight, in observation learning, they are going to play videos of their fights, and they would see that how they were, defending against various type of attacks. So in this observational learning, you either will learn new ways you can create the attack, or you will ways you will, create the defense against an attack. You will also learn how to dodge the defense of the opponent boxer who has been defending certain types of attack by a certain way. But from that certain way, you will find out the weakness, and you will come to know that by doing action, you can actually deceive and dodge that boxer, and you can actually strike the target by deceiving the other boxer, and this way the observation learning will be taking place. In organizations, when you join right in the beginning, so your writing style is different. In the beginning, you will write things, or you're going to write uh, business communication letters, business communication emails in very very informal manner. But then gradually you'll start taking a look at your boss's emails, the way organizational communication is taking place, and you'll start taking an observation out of those various communications, and based on that there's going to be learning. I personally learned that way when I joined the bank. In the very beginning, my though I had good communication skills, both orally and in written manner, but there was a style which was missing, in fact. So I had to pick that the style when I joined the bank initially. The way I started communicating the things, I figured out that bosses were bringing in some changes. So I started, instead of getting worried from that, I rather became adaptable, and I brought in flexibility in my attitude, and I just brought in those new styles which were being used in that banking organization for the communication. So again, the interesting thing is that there were two different departments. I initially was working in sort of a department where there were like more client oriented emails were being sent. So in that, the tone of the email was more marketing and sales oriented. So after having spent a lot of time in this department where marketing and sales oriented emails were used, so the communication skills were already there. So I molded my style from in accordance with that marketing and sales style. So after having spent a lot of time, around 7 8 6 7 years in marketing and sales type of areas, I gotten onto the other side of the bank, which was investigations and controls. So when I got to that side of banking, I learned that when I wrote the first email, so the boss now again brought in changes, and I was actually amazed and surprised because the existing email which I wrote was totally in accordance and in perfection with the way the department earlier department emails were being used. But now here I got to know that when we are in investigations and in the field of audit and quality assurance, then there is a little different tone which we carry. In sales and marketing, we do carry a different tone, and in this regulatory language, in this authoritative language, in this audit based departmental work, or quality assurance based departmental work, there's a different tone which you carry. So if you are adaptable, and if you do not get um, disturbed by the various criticism which comes your way, then there is very small shift you have to bring in, and the new styles are learned. So if I just put in a simple way, in marketing and sales, there's a little more submissive style which is used, while in the audit department area style, and in investigations area, in regulatory areas, more authoritative and more instruction based style is actually followed. So that way I learned from observations. I started doing was that I started taking a look at my new department's bosses emails. I took a look at the past emails which he had sent to various to state bank, and then all the way up to alongside with state bank to different departments. There were like always instruction emails to various departments, that how things should be done, how state bank is actually expecting things to be done by the bank. Then there were things which were there were emails sent to finance department, to the SMA department. So how the instruction based tone was used with, and that, but let me clarify that the instruction based tone was not aggressive tone. It was just only a change of flavor. It was just like as if a father is talking to a son, So there's not going to be an element of arrogance. However, there is an element of intellect involved, and there is that element of advisory, and a wise way of talk is going to be used by the dad, and the children is going will be using the submissive way of talk, because he has to pay respect to the elder. So the same way, the change of department I had to bring in change in my writing styles. So I learned all that through this observational learning. So this was the perfect example I thought that I should share from the practical life. That observational learning is something which you will learn if you have the the skill of adaptability, because if you do not have the skill of adaptability, then you will not be able to learn new things. If you're so rigid with whatever you have learned, then there is absolute no way you can actually learn new things. So if you really want to have the benefits taken from all the studies from which you're doing during your BBAs, then you need to bring in flexibility, because it is always difficult to alter the knowledge which you already had attained with the second knowledge regarding the same area, which now you're going to get again, because you will rather believe on the first knowledge and you will take it as the authentic knowledge. And if for the same area the new knowledge comes in, then you are going to not accept that knowledge easily until you have the courage. You have ample courage to give it a little space, so that you could do and evaluate it on basis of rationale, and only based on that you will be able to remove that existing knowledge, and new knowledge is going to take an effect. So this is the reason why there are a lot of people who just become so rigid on the information which they have attained during the early parts of their life. So it's always said that the learning is inversely proportional to your age. So the more you grow old, the more it becomes difficult for you to eliminate the existing knowledge you had with the new knowledge. So you become more firm and you remain more confident with the knowledge you had. But on the other part, it is a beautiful saying that a map which has taken you to a destination from a source 50 years ago, you started a journey and you wanted to reach at a certain point in jungle, and you followed a map. After 50 years, if you use the same map, so there is a highly likelihood that you will not be able to reach to the destination from the same starting point, because of the 50 years which have passed, because of the new trees which must have been there, and because of the new way, there must be changes which would have which I mean which must have taken place inside the jungle. So there can be a lot of changes inside that jungle. So if you just stay rigid that 50 years ago I followed this map and I reached to my destination following this map, so you cannot stay rigid on that. You will need to bring adaptability, you will need to bring in flexibility in your attitude. You may find a small canal earlier which was not there. You will say that when 50 years ago you followed the same map, there was no sign of water on this map, but now you would witness that you see after 50 years there is a long area covered by water. So you cannot stay rigid and you will not follow the same path. You will have to alter the way. So this is exactly we need to learn in this process of learning, cognitive learning and observational learning, that there should always be an element of uh, intellect in the way you do things and in the way any other person does a thing. So you should always be making use of your brain, and you should always be giving space to the new knowledge. Just do not say no bluntly, because many times the other person might also be saying the same thing. Many times the best example is, for example, if somebody is talking to you and there is a six drawn between you two guys, so from the angle your friend is looking at that six, he is actually watching it nine, but you can watch it written, you can see it as if there is six written, but it is from the angle you're looking at that digit, and you are watching it as if it is six written. But from the angle your friend is taking a look at it, he is watching it as a nine. So there is always going to be debate, and you cannot reach to a consensus, because you will stay rigid that it's a six, and your friend is going to stay rigid because he will always or she will always argue that it's actually a nine. So this is another best example to bring to let you know that there should be a flexibility in learning. It's the way and it's the angle from where you are looking at things, circumstances from where you're looking at the things. Based on that, you are accepting or denying the new knowledge. No matter how forcefully, how coarsely how forcefully you will try to persuade your friend that it's nine, it's six, but he will not accept it, because from his angle it will always remain six until that your friend comes to your side of the picture, and from that angle when he'll take a look at that, then only he's going to find the six. So just give this example importance in your life, and I hope that we have learned with the examples both of these topics, and let's conclude, and we're going to meet in the next session.